Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Zombie Man Jake, or also known as Waffle Lover to my Discord buddies. And well, the time has come. I have finally been inspired to make a lore video regarding, of course, Rezyl Azzir. And we're gonna be covering his greatest moments and his very sad downfall. But before we do that, I have some special people that I like to thank for giving me the inspiration to make these videos. As you can tell in my voice, I'm very nervous. Beatus, shout out to Beatus. Shout out to Two Tones. Shout out to JT. Shout out to Artorius. And shout out to Roman. And a very, very special person who really inspired me to make this Liquid Memoir. Speaking of Liquid Memoir, nothing is better than reading Destiny lore and having a nice alcoholic beverage to just chillax, which is why I recommend you check out his channel right here. He makes great drinks and he is an amazing and really fun person to be around with, and I am very happy that I have met him in, over the internet on Discord. So, without further ado, let's get talking about Rezyl Azzir. Rezyl Azzir, before these walls. Rezyl Azzir was a man. In time, his kind would be called Titan. Mountains of muscle and might and metal. His collar was fur and teeth, his person clad in ornate, golden-edged plating, trophies upon his shoulders. This was before the city was the city. This is before the walls. Still in the shadow of the fragile giant above, but before. Salvation seekers came, survivors, weary remnants of a people on the brink. These were the days before reason took hold, before study was merged with belief. The giant was looked to as one would a god. Maybe it still was. Factions grew from the huddled masses, like minds coming together to provide support, comfort. Over time, these loyalties demanded loyalty. Differences that used to inform, viewpoints that when joined granted a larger understanding of the whole, become points of conflict. The sanctuary became divided. The shadow of light grew darker. This, humanity's last oasis, slowly fading to a mirage. Great, powerful men and women, the Risen, stood at the faction's side. Protection, enforcers, misused possibility. Misery crept into this false paradise, yet hope lingered. Seeing the cracks in this society born beneath the giant's fractured shell, some among the Risen challenged the disillusion of all that could be. They would no longer serve as instruments of oppression. They would be more. Thus began an unnecessary war made necessary by greed, ambition, fear. And in the chaos of this struggle came the scavengers, aliens with appetites, a common enemy. In the end, the scavengers were repelled and the factions fell. Their grip broken through their beliefs remained. This was the earliest days of the Guardians, when might found purpose, prosperity was in reach. Rezyl had been a champion of these wars, a leader against the alien pirates he had been more. If the giant wasn't a god, then maybe Rezyl was. As the first walls formed, built of hard work and sacrifice, Rezyl and the Guardians stood against the alien plunderers time and again. More survivors arrived, more warriors. The Guardian ranks swelled, the city grew, hope blossomed. To Rezyl, it was a currency. Hope brought tomorrow. Tomorrow brought the effort needed to survive today. Yet, Rezyl grew wary. Stories haunted his nights, old stories, those no longer told, those locked behind tight lips for fear of what they may invoke. Whenever the sun dropped below the horizon and the moon rose high, Rezyl's thoughts wandered. How safe was safe? How long could they fight with the darkness still writhing? So, every day Rezyl would fight and build and protect, and every day a city grew beneath the giant, and every night he would think about all that was never said and stare intently at the moon above. War without end. His foot pressed hard to the sun-cracked ground beneath it. The vandal's neck gave. A hiss of ether burst free before dissipating. Rezyl turned. 3 dregs charged. Their captain raised his shock blade high, unleashing a battle cry to fuel their courage. Focused fire spit from the muzzle of Rezyl's full auto. The dregs fell. To the captain, Rezyl was a trophy that would buy unmatched respect among his devil brothers. To Rezyl, the captain was already an afterthought. As ether leaked from the pirate's broken body with each blow of Rezyl's heavy fist, Rezyl's attention had shifted to the unknown but inevitable battles to follow. This was the state of things, conflict as common as breath. The Tuscan Valley encounter. A ketch with unfamiliar markings hung low between 2 peaks, a rare sight. Fallen flagships weren't known to linger so close to the surface, preferring constant motion, like sharks on the hunt. Skiffs circled below the ketch as their crews prepared to plunder any treasure the facility held. Rezyl leveled his rocket launcher. A digital ping singled a lock and a trail of smoke shot toward the lead skiff. 2 more rockets followed in rapid succession. The lead skiff took 2 hits, lurched and retreated back toward the ketch above. The 3rd rocket caught a trailing skiff as the craft turned to engage its attackers. Rezyl looked back. Go. You can't take a ketch alone, Hassa laughed. The ship isn't my target. Rezyl had a plan. Hassa hated Rezyl's plan with equal parts envy and concern. Lead the skiffs away, he continued. We'll meet. Can't meet if you're dead, Tover shot back. Rezyl smiled beneath his helm. Go. Hassa and Tover throttled their sparrows and disappeared into the heavy woods. Rezyl watched from cover as the skiffs gave chase. The fallen below had taken defensive positions. The rocket attack caught them off guard, but they were ready now, and they were more of them than he had time to count. Rezyl raced down the slope, weaving between the thick growth of brush and pine on a direct path for the fallen, clustered at the mountain's base, his ghost at his side. "I need you to hang back," Rezyl said. Uh, his ghost replied. "Trust me. Always have." "How quick can you light my spark?" Rezyl asked. "You expect to die?" "Can't say that's the best. How quick?" "Quick," the ghost replied quickly. "Be ready, for you'll know." Rezyl's ghost slowed as the guardian hit the valley floor. The fallen opened fire. Rezyl leaped from his sparrow as it transmatted away his rifle, spraying lead at the entrenched pirates. The fallen's arc bolts peppered Rezyl. Eager dregs rushed and were met with death as Rezyl marched forward. A massive blast cratered the ground a few feet from the Titan. The Ketch had turned its guns on Rezyl. Another blast impacted to Rezyl's left, and he stumbled. A third exploded directly in his path, and Rezyl fell. From the tree line, his ghost watched as the fallen celebrated and the skiff drifted down from the Ketch above. The circle around Rezyl's body parted, and the imposing figure of their Kel stepped forward to admire his prize. The chittering excitement quieted to a steady drone as the Kel lifted Rezyl's limp body by the neck. A chorus rose among the crew, growing louder as the Kel hefted Rezyl over his head for all to see. Rezyl's ghost darted low through the crowd. He didn't like Rezyl's plan, but now he understood it. Distracted by their Kel's triumph, the ghost's presence went unnoticed until a beam of light swept over Rezyl's body. The mood shifted instantly. Cheers, turning to ravenous shouts. The Kel's gaze fell to the ghost as the beam faded. The circle began to collapse. The fallen set the pounce. As the Kel moved to toss Rezyl aside, cold steel met the underside of the alien marauder's jaw, followed by a red flash as Rezyl pulled his cannon's trigger. Ether spewed in an anger geyser, and the Kel's grip loosened. Rezyl hit the ground and unloaded 5 more rounds into the fallen leader's torso. The monster dropped. Frenzied, the Kel's crew closed in like a flood. Rezyl's ghost lifted above the fray, frantic. Now! 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 In one motion, Rezyl rose from a crouch, his fists clenched and raised high as a storm of arc light built within him, his full might raining down on the Kel's chest. The shock wave of Rezyl's attack hit like a meteor, shattering the Kel's body and any fallen within the Havoc's storm radius. The remaining fallen staggered, knocked back and dazed. Rezyl triggered his sparrow. His ghost flew to his side. "We're leaving?" "Before that Ketch opens up on us," Rezyl replied. He punched the throttle as the fallen crew opened fire. "Let's never do that again," his ghost pleaded. Rezyl didn't have to reply. If war was a constant, never was just an illusion. In defense of North Channel, winds from the south caught the smoke and began to clear the thick air. Slowly, the citizens of the small, snow-covered settlement came out from their hiding places. Rezyl surveyed their faces, each weary but flecked with hope. Living in the wilds was all they had known. Surviving, fighting, hiding. These people have heard stories of safer place, but tales of a better life were so rarely true. Rezyl and his companions had been tracking these, fallen for weeks. Had they caught them sooner, this town would have been spared. That any survivors climbed from the rubble to see another day marked this as a victory. But Rezyl was growling, tired of small wins, however meaningful. That evening, Rezyl and the others led a gathering of survivors on the long journey to the growing city beneath the traveler. Some settlers remained behind, choosing to stake their claim in the untamed wilds. Rezyl admired their resolve, but never looked back. He knew whatever death these brave pioneers avoided, that day would come to them, someday, in one form or another. And now, my friends, we get to the downfall of Rezyl Azzir. Rezyl Azzir, the Whisper and the Bone. Something in Rezyl was telling him he shouldn't be here. Something deep, something resembling fear. He knelt, examining the dust-covered pile at his feet. The skulls had been discarded with little care some time ago, decades, maybe longer. The doors carved into the rock face were arcane, dark, gothic, other, and large. The jagged finery of their archway spoke to an artistry that only served to strengthen the sinking feeling in his gut. Rezyl had come to Luna in search of nightmares, and after his long journey from the growing city beneath the traveler to the ends of the earth and beyond, he found himself face to face with the remnants of stories he hoped were nothing but lies. He stood a large man, made small against the massive looming doorway. The knot in his stomach was telling him to turn back. Sorry. The knot in his stomach was telling him to turn back. Instead, he moved forward, toward the doors, sealed as they were, for ages untold. After only a few steps, a shrill, heavy scraping cut the air. The massive doors were opening. Rezyl steadied his rifle as a lone shape floating just above the ground appeared from the deep black beyond the threshold. The figure in the doorway, a dark, ethereal woman, cloaked in tattered ceremonial and armored with ornate bone, danced in the air. Rezyl and the demon woman held their ground, contemplating one another. With no warning, the silent intimacy of the moment was broken by a booming, angry call from deep within the doorway. The sound, thick and pained, echoed across the narrow valley, then fell silent. After a beat that felt like eternity, the figure backed away into the dark. The doors, however, remained wide. An invitation or a dare? Rezyl did not know, nor did he care. The mighty titan took steps forward. I'm not sure this is a good idea. His ghost's concern was impossible to mistake. Not sure that matters, Rezyl replied. We've come, we've seen. Maybe the best course here is to warn others. Gather an army, his ghost responded. Maybe. I'm just saying, it's possible you can't handle whatever it is we've upset here. We've woken nightmares. Rezyl's attention was singular, focused intently on the dark beyond the threshold. The hive were supposed to be gone. The ghost mulled the full consequence of this mistaken belief. They've been silent for... They're not silent anymore, Rezyl interrupted. That scream, these doors? They're best left alone. I can't do that. Rezyl continued forward, toward the dark, toward the unknown. Stay here, he told his ghost. Excuse me? Get distance. We don't know what this is, what's coming. Can't risk you too close to an unknown. And if you fall where I can't find you, if I fall, if I don't return, run. Tell the others. Warn them all. There are worse things than pirates. Rezyl steadied his rifle and stepped into the dark as his ghost lingered. Hours passed. More? Time was lost in this place, and with it any remembrance of hope, of promise, of purpose, and the longing for a brighter tomorrow. Down amongst the shadows there were no tomorrows. Down in the abyss there was no hope. Rezyl's footfalls echoed, lonely measured steps with no guarantee of purchase. At any moment the world could fall away and he would be lost. The forgotten hero who foolishly sought nightmares. Then a presence, sweeping and dreamlike. Rezyl leveled his rifle. He could sense the witch, but found it impossible to track her in the dark. Rezyl opened fire, short, focused burst to light the ebony corridor. The demon witch circled just beyond the reach of each burst glow. Rezyl kept firing until the short flickers of light to gain bearing. Rezyl kept firing, using the short flickers of light to gain bearing. The witch laughed, and a thick black cloud engulfed Rezyl. The Titan kept firing, but his movements were restricted. The cloud confined him, caged him. He could hear her moving just beyond his sight as her laughter rose in pitch, cutting into Rezyl's mind and soul like a tempered blade. Rezyl flinched as the wicked woman began to speak in a tongue that resembled torture more than language. Sorry, guys. Let me repeat myself. Rezyl flinched as the wicked woman began to speak in a tongue that resembled torture more than language. The pain was searing, complete. The demon approached the writhing hero. As she spoke, her violent words began to take shape, morphing from symbols of death to a known offering of haunting human languages. The demon woman leaned in close and whispered intimately. Rezyl's ears bled as she spoke. I am the end of Marls. Zyyor, the blessed. Zyyor, the betrothed. I am of the coming storm. There are not my words, but prophecy. Your light will one day shatter and die. For now, it simply offends. And you, dear, sweet, fragile thing, shall be made to suffer for your transgressions upon this holy ground. As the witch fell silent, her hateful voice was replaced by a growling chorus of hungry, manic chittering and the rising thunder of an approaching flood. Rezyl had come looking for terrors that hid just beyond the light. He found them, or maybe they found him. Rezyl Azzir, the triumphant fall. The trigger clicked. Another empty clip slid from its purchase and dropped to the dark stone floor. It was the last. His rifle was dry. Rezyl spun the weapon in his hand, grabbing hard around the barrel like a club. A new wave of chittering death was upon him. Fragile but aggressive. Overwhelming, overwhelming in their number and oppressive in their rage. The stock of the rifle connected with skull after skull. They caved and fell. Like the others before, the pile of vanquished nightmares, half bone, half dust, grew at Rezyl's feet. There was a calm to him, an ease. The chaos of battle was no time to panic. His swing was wide, but measured. No wasted movement. A demon clawed at his back, then another. They were heavier than their frail frames would suggest. He gave a shrug and shake, turned and hammered the stock hard into the side of one creature's temple. Its skull splintered and the stock lodged deep in the wet, chalky mass beneath the bone. He made a fleeting effort to break the rifle free, but had to let it fall away as the rush of demons increased. Rezyl kicked the other monsters to the floor, stepping on its neck while shifting to backhand a throng of attackers eager to make their killing lunge. If the rifle, his battle-worn inferno, had served to thin the herd and buy Rezyl time to assess the whole of the situation, his rose would see him through. It always has. The Titan, awash in the ash and gore of his enemies, pulled his cannon and in one motion feathered the trigger to level the wretched beast closest to him. The bloom from each shot lit the cavern with flashes of red heat, a garden of angry roses blossoming in pointed defiance of this vile, hateful kingdom of shadows. On the far end of the sea of gnashing maws, the wicked woman danced in the air. Watching? Waiting? Rezyl's cannon was loaded and ready to fire, as if an afterthought. He let loose another barrage, and 6 more demons slumped, lifeless upon the pile. The witch unleashed a violent cry, and as quickly as it had begun, the onslaught subsided. The chittering fell from a deafening roar to the eerie chorus humming through the ebon haze just beyond his sight. Rezyl stood, strengthened his tired back, and took long, deep breaths. The storm had not been weathered. He could feel it in his gut. He stood now, not at peace, but within the eye. The swirling, terrible lull before the waves came crashing once more. The wicked woman laughed, a horrid, grating screech, followed by footsteps, heavy and hard. Thum, 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 thum. Rezyl squinted against the dark as he slid new lead into his cannon's cylinder. A shape took form, approaching from the deep. A being of might and mass that dwarfed the Titan. A cleaver the size of an ordinary man, no, bigger, hung hung effortlessly in its hand. I'm sorry, guys. Its body was thick with ornate bone, a living armor that was one with the beast. Rezyl let out an accepting sigh. The creature walked like a man burdened by untold sin, lumbering and slow, though its stride covered ground with unnatural ease. Sorry about that. To Rezyl, the approaching horror cut an imposing silhouette, not unlike that of an ancient, disgraced knight. Maybe it had been heroic once. Maybe here in these shadows, to the watchful eyes of the wicked woman and only her rotting horde, it was a hero still. Only for a darker, sinister cause. The thought intrigued Rezyl. The fight he had come all this way to find, the enemy he had hoped was nothing but a legend's lie, seemed eager to greet him. He smiled beneath his helm, then spun his rose with a confident hunter's twirl, before steadying his aim and fanning its hammer once more. The angry bloom lit the dark. 6 shots, center mass. Rezyl's lead pinged off a sudden shimmering wall of black. The knight had conjured a protective barrier as if from nothing. Unable to comprehend the creature's arcane methods, dark magic or unimagined tech, or even a joining of the two, Rezyl didn't care. He reloaded and prepared to face the unknown. As the ethereal shield faded, as the ethereal shield faded, the beast raised its blade and let loose an aggressive, inhuman roar. Hell's own battle cry. Rezyl accepted the challenge. His rose gripped tightly in his vice grip. The Titan charged forward. He would meet the Shadow's rage head on. 2 days had passed since Rezyl stepped from the dark corridors beneath the moon, back into the light. His ghost pressed him for details time and again. He wanted to know all he could of the wicked woman and her promise of suffering, of the sea of mindless, chittering death, of the hulky knight and Rezyl's epic battle. The ghost was enthralled and deeply concerned. If the monsters below the moon were active and aware, the city must be warned. Rezyl agreed. As they watched another Earth rise from the lonely quiet of the lunar surface and planned their long journey home, Rezyl pulled fragmented bone from the pouch that hung on his left hip, a reminder of the evil that lurked beyond the light, and the last remnants of the wicked woman's betrothed. And while he recounted once more the events of his time in the shadows, he took his rose from his holster and began grafting the bone to its steel frame. Just another trophy from another battle won. It was only later, and far too late, that the first whispers came and the bones revealed their true, jagged purpose. Well, guys, if there's the reason why I decided to read Rezyl Azzir's story today is because the upcoming DLC in Beyond Light, in which we get to wield the darkness. As we know, Rezyl Azzir became Dredgen Yor and became a guardian of darkness, who was eventually defeated by Shin Malphur, which I will get into another. That will be another lore video for another day. But the reason why I decided to cover this instead of the Book of Sorrows, since Savathun coming into play, um, it makes sense to cover Rezyl Azzir, as our guardians in the game will soon, on the 10th, be going through the same transition as Rezyl Azzir and the Shadows of Yor. We will either fall to darkness, the temptation, or we will learn to become symmetry. We will learn to balance the light and dark. We will learn to use both. We will learn to use the darkness to defeat the enemies that the light cannot. Now, before I end this, I want to read you this little excerpt from chapter 2, The Burden of Light. If there is light, there also must be darkness. One reveals the other, tends it, carves it like a marble to reveal a new shape. There is a balance between them. Therefore, to understand the darkness, we study the light. Just as the light is connected through space and time, so is the darkness. And just as the light has those who serve, who act as hands and heart and will, there are those who wield the dark in the same fashion. The light healed us, and so we have a responsibility to give it back the lives it has given us. There will be a day where we meet a new guardian, a new kind of guardian. Light and dark, power and weakness, guardian and guardian. Symmetry. Now, what to take away from this is we will meet a new kind of guardian, and I think that is referring to us. We will be the guardian of light and dark. We will be the perfect balance of symmetry. Guys, I know my lore reading wasn't the best. I stuttered on words, but I will continue to get better. I had to constantly refresh the music, and I only had 2 pictures on the frame. But again, I want to give a quick shout out again to Beatus, Two Tones, JT, Artorius, Roman, and Liquid Memoir. And let's play a proper music for this. Guys, Destiny has changed me a lot. It's taken me away from the horrors of reality that we are facing in 2020. And I encourage each and every one of you to get into the lore. I know it should be in the game, but once you start reading it, you see the connections that is in the game. I want to lastly thank Bungie for creating this amazing universe, and just to continue to deliver on amazing content, especially how things are going now, and especially with all the hype with Beyond Light. Now, with that said, if you want to read lore, I recommend Mylan Games. He's way better at me than this. And like I said at the beginning of the video, why not enjoy yourself a nice drink from my good friend Liquid Memoir. He has more drinks to come, which I'm looking forward to his mojito video. Shout out to him. And I want to shout out to my Discord, Out of the Shadow. Am I pronouncing that right? Out of the Shadow. I am pronouncing that right. Everyone in that Discord, you have been nothing but nice to me, and I want to thank you all for all the fun memories, for all the raid carries you have given me, and most of all, just when times have gotten rough for me, you have all been there for me, and you've all inspired me to make this video. And no matter how bad it turns out to be, I will continue to be your lore nerd, as I am known in the group chat. Thank you very much for listening. It's a long video, and I hope the audio turned out okay. If not, like I said, I will improve. Thank you, everyone, and guys, just have a just please be safe.